Day. Hey guys, welcome to Long Scout RC Nation. Today we're going to do a very special build. If you see behind me, it's the Losi 5B. We have it on already. We did an unboxing. We're going to go page by page in the manual. I will post in the video the instruction page. You can pause it and follow along with me. So we're going to do bag from bag. I'll start with A and we'll work our way all the way through the progression of the build. I hope you enjoy this build series. This is mostly for new hobbyists that are getting into the fifth scale world. I hope you guys follow along and get some tips, and I hope you enjoy the content that I'm putting out there. Please make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you can see all the future videos that's going to be on this build and any further videos in the future. All right, so let's crack into bag A. All right, guys, welcome to the build series of the Losi 5B race kit. We're gonna start doing this bag from bag, starting with bag A, and we're gonna build this kit just as you see out of the box. Once that is complete, we'll go ahead and add everything that we're going to put in there, all those goodies that we like to see on the car. So let's go ahead and open up our bag A and start this build. So inside bag A, we're going to have our housing for our dual servos, our front chassis brace. This is going to be your steering arms and hardware for your servos. This will be your steering for bag A2. A3 is your fuel tank. And A4 is the braces for the fuel tank. So for the beginning of the build, starting with bag A, you will also need your tool bag, and we'll go ahead and open this. The contents inside of your tool bag will be a blue and red Loctite, all Allen wrenches needed for the build, a shock building tool, a turnbuckle wrench that also acts as an open and box in wrench, and your wheel wrench. So we will now start by opening our bag A1 and removing all the contents inside. All right, guys, so we have everything out of the bag and organized by size. We're gonna get started on the build now, and make sure that you have the tools that are needed, which you will need a 2.0 for these two sets of screws, and you will need a 2.5 millimeter for these screws. You will also need either a regular or digital caliper, or you may also use the illustration in the book, which is a 1-to-1 scale ratio. All right, let's start this build. So to get started, we will need the double ball, the single ball, the large ball cups, and the threaded rod. So we'll take the 2.5 millimeter driver and stick it into the bottom of the threaded rod, and we'll go ahead and start screwing it. Once you have that side on, you can start with the second side. So if you take our calipers and set it in there, it is right at 55 millimeters. One will be horizontal and one will be vertical, as you can see here. And I will show you on the book as well. So here on the book, you can see it's a 1-to-1 ratio. It lines up right with both lines. Now it's time to put our pivot balls into our steering linkage. And you can do this by using a pair of pliers. You can use a C-clamp. You can use a vise, whatever you have available to you. So what you would want to do first, a little tip, is put a nut on the end of the threads so that way you protect from damaging the threads. And we're going to take our steering linkage and place it into our vise. So here you can see we stuck our ball end inside of our steering linkage, and we're gonna go ahead and just compress it in there until it clips in. It popped in, and you just wanna make sure that everything is moving freely, nothing's binding. If it is a little binding, you can squeeze it with some pliers and that will loosen up the plastic and make it move a lot freer. All right, you can also do this with pliers. You can also do it with a C-clamp. As per the directions, we have our vertical ball, and then we have our horizontal ball, which we are going to place the second ball into the cup in this manner. We're going to back it with a socket. This is a 1132. You just want to make sure that you have the same diameter as the plastic, so it's not too big or too small, which will back our vise or C-clamp, whatever you have to use, and it won't damage any of the threads because it will be inside the socket. All right, so that's in there nice and free. It's moving freely. For the second part of our steering linkage, we are going to need the smaller ball cups with this ball that has the coned shape, and then also this threaded piece with the nut in the middle. So as you can see on the threads of this rod, this side is going to screw in and this side is going to be reversed, so it's going to screw in this direction. So just pay attention to the threads. This will allow the ball cups to equally move out or inward depending on which way you rotate this threaded rod. So let's go ahead and thread these into our ball ends. So now that we got it started on both sides, what you can do is thread one on one side with a socket, which would be a 8mm, which I have here. Or you can go ahead and use a gear wrench. But once you have them in together, you're gonna wanna use the open end and not the box end, otherwise it's gonna be stuck in there. So we'll take our open end of the wrench and just turn this by hand. Pretty much take it all the way down, bottom it out, so that way you can even it out when you get it to our desired measurement. So this one's going to be reverse. Okay, so now we got it nice and even. We're going to go ahead and get this out to 46.5 evenly. We'll move this side out a half turn, then this side out a half turn. So of course my battery died, but as you can see here, you got 45, 46 and a half. I will show you on the book. Okay, here you can see on the book that we have it end to end at 46.5, just to double check. And let's move on. We will now take our ball that has this cone flange right here with a nut on the back as a backer and our freshly installed steering linkage and place it in one side of the linkage. Get it nice and straight and go ahead and pop it on in there. Once you hear it click, it's in there, good to go, and we're ready to move on to our next step. So now we would need the rest of our hardware that came in the bags, our steering arms,
our M4 lock nuts, our M3 lock nut, our washers, our 8 M3 by 12 millimeter bolts, our M2.5 by 8 millimeter bolts, and our M3 by 8 millimeter button heads, along with our freshly built linkage and our dual servo bracket. So you're going to take your M3 by 12 millimeter bolt with your 2.5 nut driver and put a washer and install 8 of these into your dual servo bracket. I find it best to hold the bolt with your fingers like so, just to keep it lined up and straight, and put pressure and twist in until you catch a grab. Once you get it in there, then you can just go ahead and drive it in there. Just make sure that it's going in straight. If you have your servos, you can go ahead and add these at this time. So that will hold your servos onto the dual servo bracket. So we're now going to take our 2.6 by 8 millimeter bolts and go ahead and run them into these servo arms. And then you're not going to crank them down yet, you're just going to get them in there. And then once you put them on to the servo itself, then you're going to go ahead and tighten this down. You will now take our steering linkage and place the ball in so it matches this one right here that has that coned flanged edge, and go ahead and snap that in. All right, you can see that the upper and lower one are both going the same direction as far as the threading, and we'll go ahead and snap this in. And it should look just like this. This one's going to be down and those will be out. So with our first one, we're going to have our 4 millimeter nylon nut facing outward like so. You're going to take a 3 millimeter hex driver, place it inside the ball, and go ahead and thread that on in till it's nice and tight. This part will not move, so you want to make sure that it's tight, because all the action is going to be on the ball. And we're going to also do the same for this one. We will now take the second 4M nylon locking nut, place it into the servo arm, and do it with our second threaded ball end with a 3 millimeter hex driver. Make sure you get it nice and tight. And now we have both steering arms ready to go. With our steering linkage mounted on our steering arms for the servos, you will now take a 2.0 along with your 3M by 8 millimeters, add a washer, and these will be installed into your servos right here as shown. And make sure that you get those down nice and tight onto your servos, or if you don't have them yet, just put them in a plastic baggie and you will put those on once you have your servos. So now you're like, Brandon, what about this M3 nut that's sitting here all by itself? Where does this go? This will go on the back of your bracket right here with the nylon facing down. You'll place it right inside here, line it up, and it will slide right in there, just like so. Now that we completed A1 bag, we are going to pop into A2 bag. Here we have our Servo Saver tube, spring and adjuster, our Servo Saver and bell crank plastics. We have our drag link, which you have either a narrow or a wide, our bearings, our hardware, our top chassis brace, and the body post to hold the body on the front end. Okay, so we're going to start with our plastic pieces, as you can see right here, and our drag link. You're going to take these long bolts right here and stick them on the outside hole of the plastic on both sides, with these two tapered facing towards you. You're going to take your M4 locking nuts and place them underneath on the bottom. And we'll just get those started on each side. Now that we have those pieces of hardware installed, the last M4 lock nut will go on the bottom of your top. We're going to take our tube and place that inside and run this down through. Take our spring and our adjuster and go ahead and start threading that on there. All right, once you have that on there together, you're going to take this small little screw and this will go inside of your adjuster, which once you get this to the proper tension, this will lock it down so it does not unthread on you. This screw will take a 2mm hex driver and just leave that loose for now. Just get in there and get it started. And we'll just run this up a little bit more. You're gonna want 1.75 millimeters showing from the bottom and this flat edge right here. So just keep running this up. You can use pliers, you can use a rag so you don't hurt your fingers trying to thread this up. And once we get this up, we'll move on to the next piece. All right, guys, we got this twisted in. It definitely takes a little bit of strength. As you can see, got a little bit of a blister going there. But anyways, you're gonna take the back end of your caliper and you'll push this down till it hits the body. And then that will give you your 1.75. You can adjust this once you have it on the car. You can make it tighter or make it a little bit looser, depending on what you like. So once you have it to your desired spot, go ahead and lock this down. And then we'll go ahead and tighten up these lock nuts right here. This will be a 3.0 on the top. And you want to make sure that you got it nice and loose, but your hardware is nice and tight. Don't over tighten it. Remember, it's plastic. And we're going to do the same for the other side. All right, good to go so far. So there is going to be a diagram with a key, and it's going to say to make sure that you do not over tighten and that they're in the right orientation. So this is what it should look like from an overhead view.